The presentation so far. My name is Heather. I'm a Filipina. Sorry. Well, don't be distracted by my long and shapely legs. So just focus on my presentation, okay? Right, so let's continue. I'm currently president of the University of the Philippines, Cavite. It's the first and the biggest LGBT student organization in my country, and I'm also a member of the Society of Transsexual Women of the Philippines. So, lack of resources and services for education, this will be our topic. First, we're going to state why this is a problem for us, and my colleagues here will suggest solutions on how we can overcome this dilemma. Okay? So, me, I'm very affected because I'm still enrolled, and I'm currently on my senior year, and I've experienced lack of resources and services growing up because, well, first off, the usual typical Filipino family doesn't really offer support when it comes to sex instruction or, sexual or gender identity. They don't know that. They just expect you to grow up and get married and have kids, and that's it. So, yeah, so, well, school didn't really help either because from all the countries here in the Southeast Asia and Pacific, well, I can probably say that our culture has been sex negative still as of the moment. So we view sex as a way to reproduce, and if it doesn't fit that paradigm or that model where the penis goes to the vagina and all that, so it's not going to work out. People will be angry with you. And also, well, if you're transgender, you don't have access to information. I had to buy my hormones underground, because they're not familiar with transgender bodies and all that. So it was a hard time for me growing up. But through these meetings, I got to learn, and hopefully we get to pass it on with your help. So what we're here to offer, well, normally, so there is a lack of discourse in sex education that accommodates LGBT discourse. So, for example, it's a heterosexist model, and the thing that is taught in schools nowadays is just, the reproductive system. Here you go, you have a child, and that's it. There's no accounting for the diversity of sexual and gender identities that exist in the world. And if there is, if there is sexual education in schools, it is presented in such a boring and unfun way that students just zone off and not pay attention. It's a concept that's so abstract and unreachable to, the normal student, the normal young person, that many young people, well, in the Philippines, we just go and ask our friends or go online from, sites that aren't trusted. We watch porn. So we don't pick safe, we don't learn to engage in sex in the safe way. So that increases the risk that, we contract STIs, HIV. So now I present you to my colleagues who will, because for the 3 days we've been thinking hard about how to overcome these obstacles, and we've sort of devised two general ways of approaching it, one from the macro level and one from the micro level. So first off, we'll look at things from the top down, and Isaac will be here to tell you more details. So Isaac?
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you guys? Fine? Okay. Oh my God, that's actually gay. Technical problem. Okay. I am Isaac Yitawai. I'm from Malaysia. I'm actually part of the Penang Family Health Development Association. So please do not get distracted by my white chat. Bigger problem here, bigger issue here, lack of education. Okay, so let's look at the macro level. So how do we get it started? How do we get it pumping? How do we actually start with education? Okay, let's look at. Okay, sorry, am I too loud? LGBT consultation with policy makers. We gotta involve MOE and other stakeholders and also LGBT youth to have a say in the curriculum of sexuality education in our own respective countries. Okay, let's start. We have to develop action plans because we are not NATO, okay? No action, talk only. We have to have so we have to gather information on all the best practices in our region, and from there we work on it. We have to identify the key people who are in the seats, who are friendly to the causes of national health care groups, and have the fourth coalition of LGBT youth services in our own respective countries in order to support the same cause. Okay, next please. Okay. So, how do we get started? In the next 6 months, we will form a coalition of youth LGBT services providers, because by actually getting everyone together, we are able to stand as a whole, and we have and we are actually being bigger and being more powerful in that sense. So, after we form our own power and we got a right to say what we want to say, we definitely can make a change. So, by doing so, we can have consultation with policy makers, because by then, we are big, we are powerful, okay? So, that consultation time period, we actually, after 1 month after the coalition, because we do not want to slow things down, okay? So, after this consultation with policy makers, we gotta have action plans, okay? We gotta develop our own action plans based on the consultation with policy makers. So, after we have developed the action plans, what should we do? We shouldn't just be NATO again. We should implement it. We should take action and fight for our rights. We should actually do, and after we have, wait, please. I know it's funny, but you gotta bear with me, okay? So, hello, back to the topic. So, after implementation of our action plans, we got to evaluate and listen to the feedbacks from the action plans, because without this feedback, we wouldn't know whether our actions are on the right track. Okay? Sorry, am I too fast?
No, you're perfect.
You for us are fine. Okay, sorry, okay. After that, after doing evaluation, we got to refine it to the finest details. We couldn't just let it be, and just listen to feedback. Okay, evaluate, no good, and then no action taken again. NATO, right? So I would like, after this, I would like to pass to our Mr. Singaporean here. Okay, so Mr. Singaporean, let's give him a big clap, Mr. Singaporean. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Nothing to show. Unlike the other two. But from a macro level, we want to bring things down to a slightly more grassroots level in which LGBT youth can actually get involved and get engaged, at the same time learn from each other. So one of the recommendations that we kind of come up with is actually an LGBT online youth magazine. So far, there has been a lot of youth magazines out there, but there's not been specifically just talking about LGBT youth issues. Youth issues meaning everything from coming out to transformative changes to relationships, sexual health, family, I mentioned relationships, yes. All those stuff which is just all, covered under the mainstream youth media, but nothing has been really said, nothing's been really done for specifically for youth LGBT issues. So the issue is existing platforms are not catering to LGBT youth issues specifically. And so our objective as a whole is to provide an alternate platform for LGBT youth by LGBT youth. So the style of the online youth magazine will be creative, vibrant, culturally sensitive, because we know that it's going to be a cross-regional kind of thing, and we want it to be youth empowering at the same time. Okay, so the methodology. How? It's going to be an online magazine on which we're going to publish it 4 times a year. It's going to be online. We're going to try to include Web 2.0 elements like downloadable content via PDF, so you can bring it onto your BlackBerry, onto your iPhone, onto your mobile phones and read it offline. At the same time, users are able to generate information and comment back to the articles and then feed a forum from there on. Also, because everything is now at the touch of a click, at the touch of a button. We are able to share things so freely. So this is what the next thing we're trying to do, is the ability to share articles freely via Facebook, via Twitter, via Dig, all those social networking tools. And also very important is we not just want to reflect back on the larger LGBT community across the region. We want it to have a personal sense of story. Everybody wants something that personal that they can relate to. So that comes under the self-reflection bit, where we have a lot illustrations from individual LGBT youths that can talk about their own life story, the goals, their dreams, and how normalizing sometimes it could be just across our region. And what we wanted to do is, it's going to be about 4 to 8 pages with bite-sized information packed with essential information. So everything from health services to relationships, counselors, who can they turn to in the respective region, and respective country. Okay, in addition to the magazine, the online magazine, what we've devised is also a magazine podcast that goes hand in hand with the online magazine. Okay, the podcast is to be combined with MSN or LGBT-centric health information. It's be combined with bite-sized issues and information to educate and engage the larger youth population, the LGBT youth population. And the podcast is supposed to act as an interim content for the magazine. So because the magazine is going to be published just 4 times in the year, but the podcast is going to be probably published about once every week. From different regions, so everybody can bring it on their go, onto their mobile phones, onto their iPhones, and listen to it on the go. So what we want to engage is web hosting providers, youth-centric MSM or TG community groups to actually create the content. And one good example that's really happened in Beijing is actually Queer Comrades Radio. They actually do a podcast in Beijing in which people actually just download and listen to the issues online. Okay, so the podcast can also be produced in different languages, and it can be downloaded off the internet. Oh, okay, how? It's just full of text and text and text. We wanted it to be bite-sized so that people can just remember, yeah, like 17 magazines exactly. Like they remember the key phrases, and then they can just read about the details afterwards. So topics like sex, healthy living, news, and also letters from reader feedback. Okay, so what we want to do is hopefully we can translate the various languages of the region, including Mandarin, Chinese, Tamil, Bahasa, Tagalog. Okay, so who do we want to engage in terms of people to create the content for the magazine? Obviously, LGBT-friendly resources like healthcare professionals that can vet through our content. At the same time, online web hosting companies, correspondents on the ground in various countries, web editors, web designers, forum and comments moderators to make sure that, well, not family friendly, unfriendly comments be removed from the forums, web technicians to keep a lookout on any